today I am going to be reading to you. This will probably be a mix of soft-spoken, whispering, unintelligible, and I will be putting on some rings today as well. I would usually be more done up than this, but I'm just in between tattooing myself right now. It's 2 in the morning. I'm not gonna put makeup on. If anybody was wondering, I just barely tattooed on myself. The Halo 2 Activator Index. If anybody knows what that is, I love you so much. Anywho, let's get these rings on. So, I have arthritis, and so I have a couple of rings that are meant to like hold your joints together. So I have one for my thumb, and then I have another for my other thumb. So we're gonna have those on today, and so it sits like this to help with my joints. I am gonna put one on every finger, so some are gold, some are silver. I'm sorry. I'm usually a silver girly though. So we've got my mushroom ring. We've got this little like rainbow jeweled ring, just 'cause I thought it was cute. Got a little safety pin. I've got a little moon crystal bit. This old pretzel rusty ring that's probably gonna make my hand green in like 2 seconds. I want on this finger. NPM, never mind. I have this little just like jewel. I think it's supposed to be garnet, but you know damn well that's just glass. This little chain one that's also kind of probably gonna make my hands green. And last but surely not least, I was able to fit it. It's just this little bind spiral run. So now we have some rings. And so I have 3 books for you today. 2 books and a magazine actually. And so the first one is gonna be Alan Lightman's Einstein's Dreams. This is one of my favorite books, for sure. This book is about concepts and dreams from Albert Einstein. This is a historical fiction book where it's just theoreticals. This is the binding. It is 10 minutes past 6 and the invisible clock on the wall. Minute by minute, new objects gain form. In the dim light of morning, the young patent clerk sprawls in his chair, head down at his desk. For the past several months, he has dreamed many dreams about time. His dreams have taken hold of his research, but the dreaming is finished. One of the many possible natures of time, imagined as many nights, one seems compelling. Not that the others are impossible. The others might exist in other worlds. The patent clerk is Albert Einstein. In his dreams, he imagines new worlds in which it can be circular or float backwards or slow down at higher altitudes or take form of a nightingale. I love this book. I also just like the pages. I like how they feel. I will say, some of these words are in German, and though I know a little bit of German, I'm probably sit beside the lake and contemplate the texture of time. Hypothetically, time might be smooth or rough, prickly or silky, hard or soft. But in this world, the texture of time happens to be sticky. Sticky, 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 sticky. Portions of towns become stuck in some moment of history and do not get out. So too, individual people become stuck in some point of their lives and do not get free. Just now, a man in one of the houses below the mountains is talking to a friend. He is talking of his school days at the gymnasium. His certificates of excellence in mathematics and history hang on the walls. His sporting medals and trophies occupy the bookshelves. Here on the table is a photograph of him as captain of the fencing team, embraced by other men who have since gone to university, become engineers and bankers, gotten married. There in the dresser, his clothes from 20 years, the fencing blouse, the tweed pants now too close around his waist. The friend who has been trying for years to introduce the man to other friends nods courteously, struggles silently to breathe in this tiny room. In another house, a man sits alone at his table, laid out for two. 10 years ago, he sat here across from his father, was unable to say that he loved him, searched through the years of his childhood for some moment of closeness, remembering the evenings that silent man sat alone with his book, with unable to say that he loved him, and unable to tell him that he could say he loved him. The table is set with 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 forks, and on that last night, that man begins to eat, cannot eat, weeps uncontrollably. He never said that he loved him. In another house, a woman looks fondly at a photograph of her son, young and smiling and bright. She writes to him in a long, defunct address, imagines the happy letters back. When her son knocks at the door, she did not answer. When her son, with his puffy face and glassy eyes, calls up her to window for money, she does not hear him. When her son, with his stumbling walk, leaves notes for her, begging to see her, she throws out the notes unopened. When her son stands at night outside behind her house, she goes to bed early. In the morning, she looks at his photograph, writes adoring letters to the long defunct address. A spinster sees the face of a young man who loved her in the mirror of her bedroom, on the ceiling of the bakery, on the surface of the lake and the sky. The tragedy of this world is that no one is happy, whether stuck in the time of pain or of joy. The tragedy of this world is that everyone is alone, for life in the past cannot be shared with the present. Each person who gets stuck in time gets stuck alone. That was probably one of the saddest chapters of this entire book. I'm so sorry. But it's just concepts, simple concepts. I think one of my favorite chapters of this book is the concept of if, like, higher in elevation you are, then the longer you'll live, even if it's just by a few minutes. And so people would live on mountaintops and have their houses on stilts for the single hope that they would live just 5 minutes longer. And so it's just random thoughts. So I love this book so much. I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. I'm so sorry. They did not provide me with a straw, and I am upset. Okay. I'm gonna do It is talking about older artists, and someone that I love very much. If I can find it, I would love to find the one that talks about David Bowie. Paula Perry. Prince. I'm going to be barbaric and I am going to so you feel the singer is loving every moment and you're afraid you're missing something. Then after following the woman into the theater, find himself caught up in the drama of art and audience. The singer is on the street, walking alongside everyone else. Whole vistas of history and fashion opening and closing before him, and his tone is quiet, ordinary, accepting. And if there's a sense that modern life, all of its advertisements and conveniences, its comforts and distractions, is a diversion. It's the class system offering you new clothes, a trick, a fraud, and that's all there is. The song breathes out the whole sweep of post-war British culture before the Beatles turn back on its head. The slow, squalid sink of pointless desires caught in John Osborne's play Look Back in Anger from 1956. Colin McKin's novel Absolute Beginners, Tom Courtenay and Julie Christie and Billy Liar, and Nell Dunn's Up in Junction, and places it squarely in the present. The new partner in American Century Records, Annie Maurice's Andreasito, now no longer number 2, Ray Romano sound, to a David Bowie soundtrack. At the end, a cheesy vapid Life on Mars begins to play. As the camera pulls back, we see that the party's over. Zach is sitting at a table looking at nothing, and the band is packing up with the piano player, played by Doug Smith, is singing the song, lip-syncing a version of Trey songs recorded for the show. Just some sort of cheesy version you'd expect from a bar mitzvah singer. The word Mars held forever. Let's find another page, shall we? I don't know if I want to read anything else from this. I think we might just have to move on to our final book. Okay. This final book is my favorite book. last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even consider the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely they drew their plans against us. Let's see, where does it go from there? It is possible that the Inferiosa under the microscope do the same. No one gave the thought to the older worlds of space as sources of human danger, or thought of them only to dismiss the idea of life upon them as impossible or improbable. It is curious to recall some of the mental habits of those departed days. At most, terrestrial men fancied there might be other men upon Mars, perhaps inferior to themselves and ready to welcome a missionary enterprise. Yet, our minds are those to the beasts that perish, intellect vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this world again with envious eyes. And early in the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. The planet Mars, I scarcely need remind the reader, revolves around the sun at a mean distance of 140 million miles, and the light and heat it receives from the sun is barely half of that is received by this world. It must be, if that of the nebular hypothesis has any truth, older than our world, and long before this earth ceased to be molten, life upon its surface may have begun its course. The fact that it is scarcely 1/7 of the volume of Earth must have accelerated its cooling to the temperature at which life could begin. It has air and water and all that is necessary for the support of animated existence. One thing we need to remember is this book came out in the 1800s. They had no research, and if they did, it wasn't extreme amounts. And it's 1800s to early 1800s to 1900s. So, yet so vain is man, and so blinded by his vanity, that no writer up to the very end of the 19th century expressed any idea that intelligent life might have developed there far, or indeed at all, beyond its earthly level. Nor was it generally understood that since Mars is older than our Earth, which is scarcely a quarter of the superficial area and remoter from the sun, it necessarily follows that it is not only more distant from life's beginning, but nearer its end. The secular cooling that must someday overtake our planet have already gotten far, indeed, with our neighbor. Its physical condition is still largely mystery, but we now know that even its equatorial region, the midday temperature barely approaches that of our coldest winter. Its air is much more attenuated than ours, and its oceans have shrunk until they cover but 1/3 of its surface. And as its slow seasons change, huge snow caps gather and melt about either pole and periodically inundate its temperate zones. The last stage of exhaustion, which to us is still incredibly remote, has become a present-day problem for the inhabitants of Mars. The immediate pressure of necessity and has brightened their intellects, enlarged their powers, and hardened their hearts. I'm sorry, it's kind of a large book, so it's a little unconventional. looking across space with instruments of intelligences and such as we've scarcely dreamed of, they see at its nearest distance, only 35 million miles sunward of them, a morning star of hope, our own warmer planet, green with vegetation and gray with matter, the cloudy atmosphere eloquent of fertility, with glimpses through its eloquence, with glimpses through its drifting cloud wisps of broad stretches of populous country and narrow navy-crowded seas. And we men, the creature who inhabit this earth, must be to them at least as alien and lowly as are the monkeys and lemurs to us. The intellectual side of man already admits that life is an incessant struggle for existence. And it would seem that this too is the belief of the mind upon Mars. Their world is far gone in its cooling. And this world is still crowded with life, but crowded only with what they regard as inferior animals. To carry warfare sunward is indeed their only escape from the destruction that generation after generation creeps upon them. Before we judge of them too harshly, and we must remember the ruthless and utter destruction of our own species has wrought not only upon animals such as the vanished bison and dodo, but upon its own inferior races. The Tasmanians, in spite of their human likeness, were entirely swept out of existence in a war of extermination waged by European immigrants in the space of 50 years. Are we such apostles of mercy as to complain if the Martians warred in the same spirit? The Martians seem to have calculated their descent with amazing subtlety. Their mathematical learning is evidently far in excess of ours, and to have carried out their preparations with a well-nigh perfect anonymity. Had our instruments permitted it, we might have seen the gathering trouble far back in the 19th century. Men like Scarpelli watched the red planet. It is odd, by the by, that for countless centuries Mars had been a star of war, but failed to interpret the fluctuating appearances of the markings they mapped so well. All that time, the Martians must have been getting ready.